something snapped and I went traveling and I left to go traveling. So I'm 17, 18 now. And I was probably about 11 or 12 stone, don't really know. But I came back early from my travels because my friends were like, she needs to get home, and I was 5 stone. I think there becomes a point where there is a chemical imbalance and you then can't control it. For me, it was worrying less about, how I looked and just trying to instill really positive, be happy, be kind, be who you are. That what you look like will never determine and should never determine the job, the person, the people you hang out with. And if it does, they're not your people. I thought I was dying from perimenopause. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed and actually saying to my husband on a couple of occasions, if I don't wake up, tell him it was my heart, because I had such bad heart palpitations. I felt very angry. I felt very alone. And so I think that so many women get to a point where they don't know how to get back. I rang my GP like endlessly. And they just gaslit me. It was like, they didn't even mention menopause. I was sent for 2 chest x-rays. I was told I had asthma, yet I was like running. They just said I was depressed, I was stressed, offered me antidepressants.
Today's guest is a woman who's completely changing the conversation around menopause, midlife, and what it means to feel strong as a woman. Kate Rowe-Ham is a leading women's health coach, menopause fitness expert, best-selling author, podcast host, founder of Owning Your Menopause app, and a mum of 3. Through her work, Kate is helping women reframe menopause, not as a decline, but as an opportunity to become fitter, calmer, stronger, and more empowered than ever before. She's a best-selling author of Owning Your Menopause, with her second book, The Longevity Solution. She's worked with global brands and has appeared across major media, and is a passionate advocate for helping women understand the importance of movement, nutrition, rest, and mindset in midlife. What makes Kate's work so powerful is that it's deeply personal. She qualified as a level 3 personal trainer later in life while raising 3 children and navigating perimenopause herself. So she truly understands the realities women face. Kate, welcome to the Showing Up Stronger podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It always makes me laugh when people read all that stuff out, because I get like really bad imposter syndrome. So I'm like, oh my God, who is that person? So thanks for reminding me.
My absolute pleasure. Well, I'd like to hear from you. Who is Kate Rowe-Ham?
Oh, do you really want to know?
Yes.
Who is she? She's chaotic, messy, hopefully, vulnerable, and a fitness trainer. So I guess kind of my backstory is that was never, I guess, my intention. I wasn't really fit at school. So I guess the growth of Kate Rowe-Ham has been to challenge the narrative that I've always had about myself, and to realize that in midlife, you can show up for yourself. So, that is the journey of Kate Rowe-Ham. It's very succinctly, I suppose, as in who I am a mother of 3 and a wife.
I love it.
So there we go.
Fantastic. Because you qualified as a PT later in life.
Yeah.
Whilst raising 3 children. What pushed you to train as a PT?
Excuse to get out of the house. No, I'm joking. I love my kids. What pushed me? So I suppose, like, with my own background, I always exercised for the wrong reason. So for me, it was always about the aesthetic benefit. So I suppose before I qualified, I didn't know anything about training or personal training. It was very much that stuff that back in the day when we read magazines rather than social media, it was what was fed to you there about how to be smaller. Because again, I think, although we're back there again, being smaller might determine that you were more successful. So for me, that had always been my exercise journey. Which had come with, I guess, then having some disordered eating patterns around, obviously around food, and self-awareness and body confidence. Had my kids and realised actually I kind of needed to change that, because I didn't want them to grow up with the same phobias that I did. So to kind of cut that long story short, got to sort of 39. I had got through my late 30s, fairly okay with food, but still, I don't think you ever get rid of that desire to be small, if that's what you've been used to. Had my third child a little bit later in life, after 4 miscarriages. And I wanted to get fit again, or did I want to get slim again? I guess that's kind of the question that I always ask myself. I think I'd sort of fallen off the rails. And I looked around and there was nobody really that spoke to a busy mum of 3 at the time, to do fitness. How did I get there? Apart from actually Joe Wicks, who was like the inspiration. But I still didn't think he understood what it was to, be that mum and be busy and fit in workouts. So I just thought, I'm going to qualify. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be that woman that helps other women get fit. So I actually started to train to be the PT when I was 39. So sort of 10 or 11 years ago with a newborn baby. And that's kind of how it all started. And my Instagram started actually as Hit for Life. So it was all about HIT. And Rupert used to crawl on top of me. And so it was making that thing for mums. And then menopause hit me. So that's how I kind of got into it.
I love it. That's great. Did becoming stronger physically make you emotionally and mentally stronger too?
Yeah, I definitely think so, because Rupert was actually Rupert was born with a rare genetic lung condition, which is why I ran the London Marathon recently, called PCD. So actually those first few months were horrific. And actually he wasn't diagnosed for 5 years. So I think finding a love of exercise that wasn't about weight and that was more about my mental health and managing a rather chaotic lifestyle with a child who, for all intents and purposes, had a disability, exercise really helped me. And I think it was in those 5 years that it was all reframed. I mean, obviously I learned through my PT course the benefits of exercise and, again, trying to change that narrative. But for me, mentally, it was a game changer. And also, as you know, with what you do, the community aspect, these amazing things that you do locally, and you bring women together and mums together. Like, that was the other thing. I lived in the middle of nowhere. My third child was a lot younger than everybody else's children. There's a 10-year age gap and a 7-year age gap with 1 and 2. So I didn't have people around me. So I qualified and then I was able to run group classes and sort of find a tribe. And again, that definitely brings in that mental resilience. So yeah, without a doubt.
Can we touch on your eating disorder?
Yeah.
If that's okay. How did you find out that you had it, and what was the turning point to come around it?
Yeah, it was chaos, as it always is. I think it probably started, I would say, in my late teens. I'd always been, and it's funny because I suppose I look back now and I wasn't, but people say I wasn't, but I was a bubbly child, I think is the word they definitely used to use in the 80s for someone who might have, been carrying more weight. And kids are mean, aren't they? So I was always made to feel at school like I was a bit bubbly. But it didn't really bother me. I didn't really think about it. And I know my mum doesn't mind me talking about it, but she definitely came from a place where there was disordered eating in her family. So I began to find that conversations around the house were, oh, are you going to eat that? Don't eat that, you'll get fat. Are you going to wear that? You'll stretch it. And it doesn't really have an impact on you when you're not necessarily aware. But then I think you become a teen and the conversations happen in the magazines, and Cindy Crawford, Kate Moss, that whole era. You're like, hang on, there's this conversation at home where I'm told not to do that, to be small. And then the magazines are saying to be successful, I need to be small. So maybe that's what I need to do. And so it wasn't until actually, yes, I suppose, and I talked about this recently, I went on holiday. I remember going to Turkey when I was about 16, 17, and I was topless and I was having, like a great time. And I didn't have any, I don't think, body worries. Probably in the back of my mind, it was there. And then, I don't know, the switch flipped when I I think, got back from that. I was in a relationship with a very toxic boyfriend who, again, was looking at pictures, had fit girls on the wall, and it just, something snapped. And I went traveling, and I left to go traveling. So I'm 17, 18 now, and I was probably about 11 or 12 stone, don't really know. But I came back early from my travels because my friends were like, she needs to get home, and I was 5 stone. So I literally just went, and I think there becomes a point where there is a chemical imbalance and you then can't control it. So I came back. But again, it was one of those things where back in whenever it was, a long time ago, 30 years ago, it's kind of swept under the carpet. So it was, oh, you're very thin. And that was sort of it. But obviously for someone with disordered eating, that's quite a nice thing to hear. So it was a very confusing time. I came back early, and I just sort of got myself better. But it's definitely something that I battled with for a long, from then until I had children, which is why I'm so passionate again about a lot of the work that I do in just trying to help women reframe all of that, because I know that I'm not alone. I think that this is a very similar pattern for a lot of women who are navigating this life stage.
Completely. So you realised yourself that you needed to, that change had to happen.
Yeah, and it's hard, I think, when you live around it, and I do think there was that era where we didn't deal with things the way we do now. There wasn't that compassion for someone with an eating disorder or with a mental health problem like there is now. It was very much stiff upper lip, kind of get on with it. And again, Slim was very much put on a pedestal, and it was worshipped. So I would say that it was very hard to change that conversation with myself, but I have done that. And again, I'm very honest about food noise and things like that, because I think I now know that I have ADHD. So again, I think that ties in with the control, with the dopamine, with sort of not, with the whole food picture. So I think what it is it's an understanding of who I am and why my body works the way it does. And I know what my triggers are and what works for me. And I think that's why I find myself doing what I do, because what works for me isn't going to work for you, isn't going to work for everybody else. And it's just saying to that woman who might resonate with my journey, of which I think there are hundreds and thousands, is break down the noise that is just all around you continually now from all these different, social media, and work out what works for you. And if you have had disordered eating in the past, you can undo it. I know, again, I'm not just dismissing someone getting help if they need it. That is really important. And I think there are more places you can get help now anyway. But just work out what works for you. And as I said, I now know what I need to do and what my day needs to look like in order to thrive and enjoy life.
So what steps did you take to come about?
I started to eat. So what did I do? I started lifting weights. I started eating properly. I'd always been terrified of breakfast. For me, it was just don't eat breakfast. And I still know so many women I talk to, and they're like, I can't get rid of this around my middle. And then it'll be 1 lunchtime. And I'm like, what have you had for breakfast? And they'll be like, nothing. And I'm like, well, there is your answer. And again, it's that generation of women who don't understand. They're scared of food. They're scared of carbs. So I learned not to be afraid of the foods that were actually going to keep me full, balance my blood sugars, help me build lean muscle, and nourish my body. And that has completely reframed everything for me. And also to know, and I guess, that is the reason this is sat on my lap, that I want to live a long and vibrant, mobile, strong life. Aging is a privilege that is denied to so many people. And if you keep restricting, if you keep stripping away, you're just eating into the years that you have. And you might have a long life, but what do those end of years look like? And I want to be that person that is. My mum is brilliant. She's 80 next year, and she just jumps around everywhere, and she's very lucky. And I want to be that person, and that's not going to happen if I keep destroying my body. So
that's very important. So if you have all these women who are saying it's now 1 o'clock, haven't had any breakfast, What would you tell them to have for breakfast to start implementing these good habits?
Yeah, again, work out what works for them. So I worked out all that noise again, where you've got people cooking these amazing like breakfasts with Greek yogurt and berries and things like that. And I'm not that person. I can't have the Greek yogurt and the honey because there's something about me that is, I have such a sweet tooth. And if I start that way, I'm like, okay, so my day is going to be sweet stuff. So I have to start my day in the same way that Julia Bradbury likes to start her day. We've chatted a lot about this. I like to have a protein-rich, savoury breakfast. And people think I'm nuts because I'll often show a breakfast that might consist of Brussels sprouts, prawns, like a prawn omelette, that kind of thing to set me on my day, probably around about 9 o'clock. But that will keep me full until probably 1 or 2. And then, for lunch, a chicken, salmon, whatever. But I try to not have as many sweet things. But my absolute go-to now is a really good breakfast. And often I have to kind of then force myself to have lunch because I've had such a great filling breakfast. But your blood sugar's balanced. It keeps you sustained. It stops you from snacking in the evening. Because again, I'm sure you see it too with a lot of women. They wait until 1, they have their food, and there's that signal. Brain goes, food, yeah, dopamine. And then it's just like, and you just carry on, and then you graze. And then it might be, for those of us that still have kids that might eat earlier, you're then doing kids' tea, and there's a pizza crust, or there's this, or there's that. And it's very easy to eat and dip it in hummus. And it just spirals throughout the day. And I truly believe if you have that one big, delicious meal in the morning, you can sustain your blood sugars for the rest of the day.
I'm never going to look at a Brussels sprout again.
Do you like Brussels sprouts?
The same way? Though? No.
Not at all. Roasted Brussels sprouts.
Yes, you see, roasted, I could.
And apparently it makes you less windy.
Oh, does it really?
Yeah. If you, same with cauliflower. If you roast it rather than boil it, it makes you less windy. Try it. Let me know.
I will certainly feed back. This episode is sponsored by Revive Active, the multi-award-winning supplement brand that's enjoyed by customers every 1.3 seconds. Why the popularity, and what's the difference between all of those other supplements out there? It's simple. Revive Active uses only the very best science-backed ingredients in their formulas, with no added nasties, while ensuring that the synergy of ingredients increases their effectiveness, giving you power, purity, and positivity in every single product. Choose from truly comprehensive and great tasting powders or a range of clever capsules to support you whatever stage of life you're at. Supporting everything from energy, cognitive function, heart health, and even a restful night's sleep. Taken by health experts, elite athletes, and everyone in between, find out how Revive Active can support you and your family. Find Revive Active in Boots, Holland & Barrett, pharmacies and health stores, or online at reviveactive.com. For exclusive discounts for all Showing Up Stronger podcast listeners, simply use the code STRONGER15. Midlife and menopause. There are loads of women that still feel quite invisible when it comes to midlife. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think now it's more, more talked about. Women, with high profiles are flying the flag, Davina, Gabby, Lisa, they're all out there, making us feel represented. But I do think for the everyday woman, it is still a hard time. And I don't necessarily think it's because we are invisible. I think that with some of the symptoms that come along with the midlife chaos, we don't know how to deal with it. Many women still don't know what's actually happening. And so they recoil and just become very comfortable, plodding through, and they question themselves, and they might not be happy in their job. And so therefore they're not going to get that promotion because they aren't as bubbly or able to be as, visible in the workplace. So I think that it's the hormonal changes and shifts that kind of come with that. And equally, in midlife, we become part of that sandwich generation. So we become time poor to look after ourselves. So we might lose confidence that will come from that. We're caring for sick or elderly parents. So our time is taken up there. We then have kids, teenagers, young adults. That comes with a whole new set of challenges. I mean, whoever said parenting gets easier, It most certainly doesn't. It does in some ways, but not across the board. So I think that invisibility we feel is a shift in ourselves, and like I often say, it's that sort of thing where I think for those women that choose to have children or have children, our bodies change, we have kids, we lose ourselves, and just as we're maybe coming back, menopause hits us. So we've suddenly built this confidence, and then we kind of go again. And that I think mentally is very, very hard, very confusing. And if you don't know why that is happening, it can be quite scary.
What conversation do you think women are still feeling ashamed at, that they're not talking about enough when it comes to menopause and aging?
Well, I just think it's that whole thing, menopause. Like when you say menopause, when I think of menopause, or when I did think about menopause, it was you were old. You were sort of over the hill and past it, and that's so not the case. That is what we have, or society has led us to believe. I also think that the thing we've got to look at is that women are living longer than we were. So I don't think menopause was such a big conversation to have, because there wasn't so much research around it and why it was happening. It wasn't spoken about, and because we are talking about it more, I suppose we're more aware of it. That's probably what I would. Yeah.
Do you think, when people say it's too late to start prioritising themselves and their health, what are your response to that?
No, it's never too late to start. And that's actually where my mum has sort of started now in her 75, to lift weights. So I definitely don't think it's too late, but it's hard. I think it's really hard when, I think my own personal experience of that is I thought I was dying from perimenopause. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, and actually saying to my husband on a couple of occasions, if I don't wake up, tell him it was my heart, because I had such bad heart palpitations. I felt very angry. I felt very alone. And so I think that so many women get to a point where they don't know how to get back. And so they almost give up. But it is never too late to take those baby steps to changing it. And I think the more we have conversations about it, and actually positive models that have gone through menopause, then it gives more hope to women. But we do miss a massive pool of women. Like, we are very privileged to be sat here having these conversations. And for me, it is the people that don't have access to the information that you or I have, or that circle that I worry about. Different socioeconomic backgrounds, and that's where a lot of the work that I do or want to do is going into sort of NHS and PCNs, and talking to women who really don't have a clue and who don't have access to what the access that we have. And that was, I guess, my own personal experience, that I rang my GP like endlessly. And they just gaslit me. It was like, they didn't even mention menopause. I was sent for 2 chest x-rays. I was told I had asthma, yet I was like running. They just said I was depressed, I was stressed, offered me antidepressants. And so I went privately, but I could afford to go privately. And so many women can't, and they're just left. That upsets me. That is not okay. And that's where I want to go and help those. I want to help every woman, but those women in particular, to know that it is not too late to start.
I've heard that so much, that women have gone and GPs have given them antidepressants.
Yeah.
I've had another guest that said exactly the same thing.
It is the gold standard treatment. It's been first line. Like, that is what that's what they are taught, and that is what they are told. And GPs currently only get 1 hour's training on menopause, in their careers. So it is hard, and I think I don't want GPs to get a bad rap from it, and hopefully now they are more aware. But if you think about the teaching that they are now having, there's still an awful lot of GPs that are in practice that have qualified. So it's only this cohort now that are getting more of that information. And it is terrifying, because I have had depression, And I knew that it wasn't depression because it came with so many other symptoms. And I think that's the problem with menopause, is that, there are so many symptoms. I mean, 51 is the sort of, ballpark figure, but there are way more. And so, 1 month, and I would have my period be really long. I'd get really sore boobs. I'd have terrible night sweats. I'd be really angry, and then I'd be fine. And then the next month, I'd have a short period. There'd be a different symptom. I'd have dry eyes. So you go to the doctor and they literally look at you like, wow. And I even remember my husband, I'd be like, the eye rolling. And that's no disrespect to him, but it's like, am I just becoming a hypochondriac? And I wasn't. These were real symptoms to me affecting my confidence in my everyday life. But I just thought I was dying.
That's scary. Why do you think the narrative has been negative for so long?
Why? Because I think it's such a taboo subject, because it is that thing that we are over the hill. It's not something that happens to us in our, 30, 35, 40s. It doesn't have nice connotations sometimes with it, like when I sit there and I talk about, vaginal dryness, night sweats, all of those things, it's not sexy. And so people don't want to say, I'm in perimenopause. I want us to just shatter that. This is something that we are all going to go through. It is a natural life transition. We cannot avoid it. Men need to talk about it. Our husbands need to know about it, because I think, the impact that it can have on your relationships is huge. And I remember when I was finally diagnosed, thinking, how do I tell my husband that I'm perimenopausal? Because he's just going to go, okay, and maybe trade me out for, a younger model, someone who doesn't lose their SH1T, in a nanosecond, isn't waking up in a pool of sweat, that, doesn't necessarily want to jump his bones every night. It's where do you go with that? And, I think people, they feel ashamed to say it. And I have got friends who I know without doubt are in perimenopause, because they'll be like, I think it's perimenopause. Don't. That's all you talk about. I'm not. And it's like, why are you so scared to have that diagnosis? You don't, if you had something more sinister, you want to be diagnosed so you can treat it. And menopause is kind of the same. You want to know that you've got it so that you can do your best to protect your heart, your bones, your health, everything. There you go. Long-winded answer.
So what do you think you wish all women would understand before experiencing menopause, perimenopause?
What do I wish they'd understand? I think, that it's nothing to be afraid of. Don't fear it. Totally own it. I think I would like them to understand that it's really important to share with their kids, if their kids are old enough, with their husband. Obviously, husband's hopefully old enough, and bring them on that journey with you, because then you can be stronger when and if you do have not a great menopause. Not everybody has a terrible menopause. Some people breeze through, but I think I want women to not to be ashamed, and to start making lifestyle changes. And again, that's a really easy thing to say, isn't it? But to implement things, build a toolkit before you get to that stage. But again, and this is where I always feel like I maybe do myself out of a job, there is nothing we need to be doing differently, really. There's the big debate, isn't there, in menopause, menopause wise, that we shouldn't be doing everyday, day-to-day life as women. I think where menopause is different is it just might take longer to recover. You might have more aches and pains. You might have more niggles. You are more susceptible to injury. So it's that whole thing. And also, like when you're pregnant, you can still exercise, you can still do all the things, but you just have to factor in little considerations. And I think menopause is the same. And I just think that people always feel there's this big overhaul that has to happen, but it doesn't. Like what I do, my daughter should be doing, and she's 17, and actually so should my 20-year-old son, lifting weights, eating well, cutting back on alcohol. And that's the last thing I'm going to say. He's traveling at the moment in Vietnam. He's definitely not doing what he needs to be doing, but that's fine. So I feel like that. I feel like for me, perhaps it's just knowing early on, to do all of these things in order to help help themselves.
You mentioned a toolkit there. What is the toolkit? What's in this toolkit that you think people should?
Well, I always want to, people always say, well, you need to say sleep. I'm not going to say sleep because that, quite frankly, winds me up. Yes, we know we need to sleep, but don't tell me I don't tell me that, because I don't sleep and I'm a busy mum like you, and that will come in time, hopefully. I mean, I only said to you a minute ago when we were sat here and we weren't recording that I woke up at 5. Like, my body clock is 5 o'clock, whatever. So let's just scrap sleep. What are we putting in the toolkit? We are putting in lifting weights at least 3 to 5 times a week. Getting outside every day, 4,000 steps a day is my kind of goal for people, because I think 10,000 gives people the jitters. I think when you do 4, you can easily hit 10 once you've kind of got there. Eat protein, fiber, good carbs, mindfulness. I do think, again, I'm working on that. De-stressing. Again, that's a really hard one. Those 2 things I find quite hard. But I think also being aware. So, like the little bit in your toolkit where you are aware of the things that you're not necessarily doing that will help you. So I know that those 2 things I could improve on, but without doubt, lifting the weights, moving your body, getting outside, community, put some friends in there, share, talk, bring people in with you, and eat well. That's would be in my toolkit.
I'm all for that toolkit.
Yeah, it's a good one, isn't it?
Cool.
And I think community is a huge one, because I think a lot of the time when I think about, why are we here with, with menopause, and perhaps why is it more spoken about, and the anxiety? Because I think COVID stripped so much away from so many of us that we've become so comfortable in our own space. And to that point, like, I think my friends know, because I show up on social media like you, that they know that they think I'm okay because I'm there, and everything's hunky-dory because I've done a story and I'm coming on a great podcast and I've had a nice coffee with someone. But sometimes behind the scenes you're crumbling, but because we put our lives out there, they just think you're okay. So for me, and I think that's because of COVID, but for me, it's actually that sense of really checking in on your friends, and not just assuming that what is being put out there is what is being put out there, because you and I both know that, some people, I think I'm quite honest, I think you're quite honest, don't necessarily share things on that social media front. But so that's where, for me, community and connection is really important. And I don't mean via the means of social media, I mean in person.
I cannot agree with you more there. I think that is so important. And as you say, people just assume. And I think that one shouldn't assume everything's okay. And as you say, I'm very authentic, like yourself, with everything that I share. But I think it is important to check in.
Yeah.
Because you don't share everything.
No.
You share the things that's to do with your work.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's there for. And people do need to check in. Are you okay?
Yeah. I think I do. I think I definitely shared too much, like the grief with my dad and things like that. And actually, when I kind of look back on that, I think that people thought I was okay because I was sharing my grief online. But I feel that actually I would have liked to have been scooped up a little bit more. And I think that's where that disconnect can happen. So I think even if someone is oversharing, they are being raw and vulnerable and authentic, yes, have those friends that can see through that. Even if you are sharing it, there's more layers underneath that.
Completely. No, I definitely agree. Share, guys. Everyone share. Let's talk about motherhood. Mum of 3, just like myself. How do you juggle everything? And what does balance look like for you?
Good job they're not here to answer that for me. What does it look like? I mean, chaos, really. But I grew up, I think, in a very chaotic household. So I think I'm used to that chaos. I'd say my kids are very resilient. They have learned to cook from a very early age. No, I'm joking. It's been hard. It's been really hard. I suppose what my kids are now, I mean, they're not kids. So my eldest is 20 this year. Middle one is 17 next week, and the youngest has just turned 10. So it has been hard. But I think it's really important in this day and age for these young adults to see the graft that goes into what we want to create, because I feel that I feel like that generation, they don't necessarily know what hard work is. I've spoken to a lot of friends who it's like, okay, it's a 9-to-5 job, and that is what they're getting paid for. I've never had a 9-to-5 job, but like my job, and that, again, look, that's my own fault. And it shouldn't be that way. Maybe it's women, I think, in general, again, very, very assuming, but I think we've given so much. So I think, yes, I think for me, it is showing my kids that they have to graft, they have to work. Life is chaotic, but we make it work. I wouldn't say that there's balance at all, and that comes with me sometimes dropping balls. And I always say, I don't want to drop those glass balls. And I know that I have, and that's the family. The bouncy ones come back, and that's okay. But equally, I also don't want to beat myself up about it. And it's funny, because I think I shared a post recently from somebody who had, and again, it sort of felt very male privileged to me, and no man bashing, but talking about what would your kids say if they were around a table when they're older about the house that they grew up in. And the mum guilt that I felt when this man said, be present and like, I am very present. I take my kids to school. I pick them up from school. I cook every meal when pretty much. In fact, I'm going away next week for the first time on my own with my husband in 16 years for more than 2 nights with no children. In fact, probably, 16 years. So I have been very present. But I think a lot of mum guilt can come with women who are trying to find careers and set themselves up and do new things. And we don't need that. Like, as long as your kids are loved and they have boundaries and they feel safe, like, we're doing a good job.
Completely. No, I think it's very important. Safety is key. So when things are getting a bit overwhelming for you, what's your reset routine?
Oh, don't have one. Scream,
Exactly.
cry. I really don't have one. Do you know what? Funnily enough, I just exercise. I think, like, it's the weirdest thing. I think that, and people would disagree. No, I am a very balanced person. I am completely chaotic. As I say, life is messy, but I think because I have habits that work for me, of course I get the overwhelm, and of course I get the moments where I'm like, I can't do it. There's always that little extra in the tank that says I can, and I can get through. And so I do. I would say weekends are quite quiet. I walk, spend time with family, go to the pub, do things with friends. That is my down time. I haven't yet reached burnout. It probably will happen at some point now. But I feel that because I do what I do, it works. Like, I don't ever get to the point where I have a complete breakdown.
That's really nice. And so when you do or don't get that element of mum guilt, who are your key supporters?
My friends are my key supporters. My family. It's hard. My mum lives abroad. My sister lives abroad. So that feels very disjointed. I'd love them all to live here, because that would be great I love them. That would be great to see them, but also childcare, would be fun. They could come on in, no problem all. But friends, I have a great network of friends. And actually, I guess, again, like the online community that I built with my app. So every morning when I teach, there's hundreds of women there, and we have a little check-in before. When we finish the class, we have a little check-in afterwards. So you already feel like you've had that, again, on screen, but a slight bit of human connection and camaraderie, and everyone's showing up for each other. So I would say that community. But yeah, definitely, some good friends who don't live far from here have held me together at some of the craziest of times. Yeah.
Tell us more about the app.
It's great, obviously.
Yes.
No. So it's great. It's worldwide. We do live classes every morning at 6:30. I teach on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I have other trainers. We have yoga, Pilates. 2 GPs, menopause GPs, mindfulness. So essentially it is exactly what every woman needs when she is navigating sort of perimenopause and beyond. So it's got strength, it's got HIIT, and it's your one-stop shop. But with, again, and I said this yesterday on a radio program, that personal connection. So I think for me, like, obviously I want it to grow and I want it to be the thing that everyone goes to. But if someone has an issue, we have a great group chat in there, and there are thousands of women and it is worldwide, that I will always answer their questions. Or if they've done something and they've got a bad back, I'll be like, send me the video, what made it bad? They are talking to me. They aren't talking to AI. They aren't talking to somebody I've got to come in and reply to them. How long that is sustainable for, I don't know, but I always want that to be the case for as long as I can. And I have had people reach out to me going, but you don't need to worry, you've got all these AI bots who can reply to them. And I'm like, that's not going to work for me. And that's not going to work for the women that I work with. They need, that personal guidance and support. So that's the app. It is growing and we just have to see where.
What's the hardest part of showing up for everyone and yourself? What do you find?
I think just sometimes do you know what? I don't mind showing up for everybody all the time because I love people. Like, I could talk, as you've probably guessed, all day to people, to anyone. I'm that person that really annoys everybody at, Tesco's and Sainsbury's, because I have to chat to the person behind the till and find out everything about them. Even on the train down here today, two guys who've come in from Barcelona, they were coming for a dinner and a business meeting, and it was sunny, and I was like, you brought the sun from Barcelona, just because I think there's just that connection for people. So I don't think that I ever struggle to do that. I think actually the hardest part sometimes of what I do, and I think you'll relate to this, is the content element of delivering on social media. And that's my shop window. So, and I don't like selling. Terrible saleswoman. I'm not a terrible saleswoman because it's going well, but I love giving that free content to people to help people thrive. But I have to be honest and say, at the end of it, there is an app that I would obviously like people to buy. There are books that I would like people to buy. And I don't necessarily enjoy the sell part. And so that sometimes for me feels very contrived and very, very difficult to do. And I don't always want to make something, a reel or a carousel. But we need to do it to stay in the game.
Completely. How would you say that motherhood shaped your relationship with your body and your mind?
Yeah, that for me was the one thing that really allowed me to change. I think those conversations that I was having with myself. I think having a daughter, I was like, I do not want her to have the same struggles and issues that I've had. And I can safely say, at the moment, touch wood, she is everything I wished I was. She's got her head firmly screwed on her shoulders. She's not afraid to speak up within, the realms of being polite, not, overly shouty. She has, as far as I know, got great confidence. And so I feel like that for me was my change. And my son is a kind, caring, considerate human, and doesn't worry about things. So I think for me, it was worrying less about how I looked, and just trying to instill really positive, be happy, be kind, be who you are. That what you look like will never determine and should never determine the job, the person, the people you hang out with. And if it does, they're not your people. And it was realizing that, I think that has probably allowed me to grow as a person that I am. So, and then obviously having Rupert, with the struggles that I've had with him, again, I think opened my eyes probably more so to the fact that everybody is struggling possibly somewhere in their own ways, and to be less judgmental. I suppose the Mel Robbins thing, let them, people want to do this, let them. So I think that's how motherhood has probably changed me. And you become so selfless. I mean, coffee, if you want one, normally goes cold. Tea goes cold. There's no expectations of any luxury anymore.
We can make it happen. We can bring it back.
Yes,
One
maybe.
glass of fizz. What does showing up stronger for you look like now?
I think showing up stronger just means kind of just like showing women to build strength, for me to keep building strength, and that every day I wake up and I do something positive and I lift my weights or I go outside. But that is without doubt for me kind of the showing up as the strongest version of myself is just to move my body.
And obviously I think we should touch on your book, The Longevity Solution. What does healthy aging actually look like to you?
Yeah, being able to move independently for as long as possible. It is that thing that taking a jam jar, the lid off a jam jar, milk bottle, getting on and off the loo, getting in and out of a car, getting a plate from a high cupboard, having balance, not falling over, like that for me is the healthy part of aging. Being strong, having conversation, keeping my mind strong, like that's all I want. That's all I want for my mum, and having lost my dad, I think like that. I think when that happens, it's a real wake up call. And obviously it was cancer. He couldn't stop that, but he was actually given 8 to 10 weeks to live and lived for 18 months. And I feel that's because he was an outdoorsy person. He sailed, he was fit and healthy. And I think that helped that journey. And so healthy aging for me is preventing, any like age-related disease from coming. But if I did have anything happen, that I'm in my best possible place to be able to fight anything that comes my way.
I love that. And so in the book, is there something that we can follow?
Yeah, always. The 21-day plan.
I love it.
So I did the last one had 30 days. This one I did 21 days because, again, I really wanted people to commit. And this is not me saying that in 21 days this happens. You and I both know that wouldn't be the case, and I would not want to missell it to anybody. But that in 21 days you can lay those foundations for the mobility and for the strength that we need. And my mum has tried and tested this with like hand weights, with light weights. That was a feat in itself because she is quite chaotic. But that is what I want people to do. So this was a book that I sort of wrote on the back of the last one, because there is that cohort of women that actually are postmenopausal, and I think they feel more invisible actually than those of us going through perimenopause, because those conversations aren't had. So that was very much kind of like what is next. Can go either way, but it's that looking after your future health. And actually, beyond the 21-day challenge, my favorite chapter in the book is obviously the bit about community, but it's about, so I talk about the tests that we're all entitled to, and I think that's a really important part of healthy aging and positive aging. We don't show up again as busy women sometimes to our smears, to our any tests that we're invited to, breast screening, the 40 plus check. I haven't had mine yet, and I'm 50, so I'm looking forward to actually. I haven't even had my invitation for my mammogram yet. So it's knowing what you're entitled to and making sure that you follow up if you haven't had that test.
That's important to show them about it. I think proactive health screening is the most important thing.
Without doubt, and it's there, and not to be afraid of it. I know a smear is really not the most fun thing to go and do on a day, but do it. And if you've got small boobs, a mammogram is pretty horrific. But actually, friends of mine who have big boobs say it's just as terrifying. So any which way, just go and get it done.
Go and get it done. You mentioned that your mum, so she started lifting weights at 75.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
It is fantastic.
So what was she doing before? Not?
No, she walks.
Okay. She
walked. She's very active, but no weights at all. Never has. And she is tiny.
And how did you get her to start?
Because I think she was terrified when I started kind of saying this is what can happen. Obviously then, I mean, my parents weren't together, but then I think my dad, going, she's looking after my stepfather. She lives in the middle of nowhere in France. I don't, if she falls, I need her to be strong. So I think it was sort of reframing that. And I've had to work on her food as well, which has been quite the task, but we're getting there.
Well, I think she's so lucky to have you.
Well, she would say that she was sometimes.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Other times, maybe not. I think every daughter or every mother-daughter relationship might be the same.
Completely. Yeah. And what part of what you're doing right now do you dread the most? It's important to be realistic and authentic.
I mean, it's not my job. And again, being totally, this is where I'm like nervous. No, being totally honest, it's the washing, the cooking, the dishwasher, that side is really hard. Like there's nothing about my job that I find hard or I don't like.
So I've got some quick fire questions for you. No thinking, just answering.
Oh no! What will come out of my mouth? Who knows?
Who knows?
Oh.
Let's have a look.
I will think. I am going to think. I'll have to think
quickly. What's in your wellness kit? Weights. Love it. 3 words to describe midlife.
Amazing. Life-changing. And a privilege.
Cardio or strength training?
Strength.
Coffee or matcha?
Coffee.
Green juice or margarita?
Probably green juice.
Love it. What, with Brussels sprouts?
With Brussels sprouts.
Got to be in there.
Yes.
What's your go-to breakfast?
Brussels sprouts, prawns, eggs.
Just checking. 1 supplement you swear by?
Creatine.
How long have you been taking it for?
Okay, this is me because I'm like, when I remember, no, every day, probably around about 18 months.
And you've noticed
long
a difference?
Before the creatine buzz. Yeah. I think mostly for me, energy and brain and muscle. Yeah.
I think the energy and the brain side of things that people don't talk about as much.
Yeah. I mean, people will say I'm not, my brain still doesn't work, but I think it works better for me personally.
Best thing about getting older?
Giving less attention, worrying less about the things that I shouldn't worry about.
What's something you're still learning?
How to find balance.
1 piece of advice you'd give to mums to show up stronger?
To listen to themselves, and believe in what they're feeling and they know, intuition. And don't let anyone dismiss you.
I love it. Kate Rowe-Ham, thank you so much. I've learnt so much about menopause, strength, juggling everything. So much. Tell everyone, where can they find you?
Oh, thank you. I've loved it. Thank you so much for having me. So on Instagram, KateRH_fitness. And then obviously books you can buy, any good bookshop, at Amazon, Owning Your Menopause, Fitter, Calmer, Stronger, and The Longevity Solution.
And where can we get the app from?
Google, Apple Store. It's there, Owning Your Menopause.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. And please come and join me on the sofa for my next fabulous female guest.